the axe doesn't have any holes in it and whatever. And a lot of you pointed out this axe does in fact have a hole in it. And that kind of blew my mind a little bit. Because yeah, it does have a hole in it. And you could shoot an arrow through it.
So while that axe technically does have a hole in it, that's actually not the axe that they're referring to. A lot of people don't realize that, obviously, we all know weapons have advanced throughout history, but axes have changed a lot. For starters, you have like more of like, if you think of a Viking axe or like a strand or like a dwarf axe from fantasy, you're thinking of something that probably looks like similar to this. Maybe something a little bit more medieval is what you think of when you think of this, and this is a little bit closer to the type of axe it actually was. However, much more likely, it was an axe that looked similar to this, where there's actually a hole between the blade and where it goes in. Realistically, it probably looked like this, which is called an ellipson axe, which is the axe they really used in ancient Greece, and thus would have been used in Epic and Homer's Odyssey and so forth and so forth. Now, while we talk about weapons from the Odyssey, the most important weapon I would argue from the Odyssey is the bow itself. And they're very common misconception and is completely understandable. A lot of people, when they think of a bow, they're going to think of more a long bow that we'd see from fantasy, or maybe more of a composite or compound bow, or like an ancient family member of that. However, his bow was very unique. For an example, a common misconception was you think it was a bow like this, very standard bow, later to be known as the longbow, something that, again, would not have existed when Homer created the Odyssey. It is straight up and down when it's unstrung. However, when you string it, it then bends, and that is what creates the drawstring for the power. Now, when looking at Odysseus' bow, it would be something similar to this. It doesn't have, it looks nothing like a bow when it is unstrung. It looks like maybe a basket that someone hasn't weaved, and they just did like the outline of it. So what you would have to do is then pull it back, string it, pull it back, string it, and you have to do that all in one motion, because if you don't, it would constantly snap back in on itself, thus also creating the draw power needed to fire this thing insane. Which is one of my favorite things about Penelope's challenge, is it's truly an impossible feat for anyone that was not Odysseus. One thing that's not mentioned in every renditions of the Odyssey, and one thing that is not mentioned just really in general people don't talk about, Odysseus' bow was a gift from the gods. It's something that he himself could only string. So even if someone was able to shoot through the holes of the axe, even if someone was able to, somehow manage to fire the bow, to string the bow was a physical impossibility for any of the suitors. It was a gift from the gods to Odysseus that only he himself could string. So Penelope's challenge truly was impossible. And even if you did it, she was sitting at the end of the hole. It's not mentioned in every rendition. However, most of them, and Epic being included, it mentions she's at the end. So even if they managed to do the impossible task of stringing the bow, even if they managed to do the impossible task of even pulling the draw back to fire the bow, and even if they managed to shoot through 12 axes, which alone would be an impossible feat, for most people, they would kill their queen, their goal, the entire achievement. Yeah, they wanted to be king, but they wanted Penelope's heart, and they would have taken it to become king.